Yes, guys, welcome to the Irish Hotspur with your boy Dave and Jack. And this evening, we bring you back Tottenham Weekly. And look, we've come up with some good talking points tonight. A lot of things to get through. But as you can see, we are joined by co-host Jack. Jack, how are you keeping, my man?
Keeping well, Dave. I'm kind of now a little disappointed because I had that little solo view, solo cam for a second there, and it was about to, be made the main event, but I guess not. We're gonna make it, an even 4-person camera, which is probably fair for the best. Slept on my flat cap apparently last night. Just put it on, Dave, and it doesn't feel the same way that it did yesterday. It feels like a little bit warped. So I'm gonna hope that maybe some way I can repair it. But apart from that, Dave, looking forward to just an easy conversation about Spurs. We're not as much doom and gloom as we're usually known for. We're going to be chatting about kind of what Gary Neville had to say that's usually wrong, and stuff like that.
Yeah, plenty to speak about. But it's great to have you back, Jacko. Of course, we bring back Brain, special guest. How you keeping, man? Good to have you back on.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's always a pleasure to hang with you lads and talk Spurs. Get all mighty cocksure with the Irish Hotspur and talk Spurs. That's what we'll have to do. But yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool to be back on. I'm loving seeing the way that this new kind of systems coming along. I'm trying to do kind of very similar things with my team, and I'm just stealing everything off Ange, and it's actually working. We scored an incredible goal using such a perfect Ange Postecoglou system. So. It's good to. I'm just loving what Ange is doing right now. So pretty happy.
Yeah, there's a lot to be happy about for once. How long it will last, we don't know, but I'm certainly enjoying it. But Alan, how are you keeping, my man? First time on, great to have you on. Everyone, I know you watched Tom added on, so you already know. But how are you keeping, my man?
I'm keeping well. Obviously, thanks for having me on. Good to be on. Obviously, you've seen a lot of your content, so good to talk everything Spurs, get in depth about Ange, obviously the Paratici thing, what Gary Neville had to say. Looking forward to a good old Tottenham conversation, and it's on a good footing because Spurs are starting the season well. So it's going to be a positive show by the look of it. So it's all good.
Yeah, I hope so. Look, there's still a few things to debate and iron out before this window closes. So we definitely have still things to talk about. But let's welcome in some people into the chat. Let's see what Irish Hotspur fanatics we got in with us nice and early this evening. Moondog, he says, Neville is and I can't stand him. Lynchy says, hi, guys. I don't think anyone cares what Neville says, period. Big up, Hennessy. Hopefully you're keeping well, sir. Great to see you in the building. We also have Rishi says, Dave starts. Yeah, always on my time, my man. Beat yourself up. Big up, Rishi. Rishi's my new timekeeper. We have Iceman. He says, good evening all. Looking forward to the stream this evening, but honestly, couldn't give 2S what Gary Neville has to say. Just happy he was on the commentary team when we schooled United. Yeah, no doubt a bit of what he had to say was bitterness, my man. Just a harmless potato says, Eden, big up, my man. Good to see you in the building. Shawnee Maddox, great to see you. I enjoyed the commentary from Roy Keane. More except the United are the new Spurs. It was interesting to hear him slag off United. Thing is, Roy Keane actually grew up a Spurs fan. So he did. That's mad. But he doesn't like us anymore. He's got his United affiliates. Big up, Tyler. Great to see you in the building. Good to see you. Hope you're keeping well. Same as Rooty too. Great to see you, my man. Davey Shire, great to see you. He says, huge up the chat. Big up, Davey. Great to see you in the building. Hopefully you're keeping well down under, my man. Dino Dinosaur Dave looks like he is secretly watching Kane at Bayern. I'll be honest, I haven't bothered. I actually couldn't give two cahoots what he does outside of Tottenham Hotspur. Tottenham players and what they do at Tottenham is what I care about. It was the same when Ali left, Ericsson left. I complained. It's like, why is so many people bringing up Ali stuff and Ericsson stuff? Who cares? They're not at the club anymore. Couldn't give a shit. Time to move on. But big up, Dino.
Sketchers, Dave?
No, I'm an Adidas man, Jack. Anyone that knows me, knows that I'm an Adidas man. Can't be doing Skechers there. Bang average, Jack. The design on them, they look horrible. Big up, Neil Thomas, new YouTube member. Great to have you on board, my man. Jacko, what one is he?
He's grabbed the Flat Cap membership. Big up to Neil Thomas. And then also who you said hello to earlier, Mr. David Shire. He's gifted 5 memberships to the one and only Derek Smith, David Woodford, 3 for all, Darv Hotspur, and Wade Stewart. Everybody take advantage of Dave's generosity. Come on and have your say. And then as well, like Dave has brought up plenty of times, as kind of the fan show membership, you can get involved in kind of the fantasy league and a bunch of other stuff as well to kind of, get closer to the community. If you already weren't close enough already, you're even closer. Big up, everybody. Thank you as well, David Shire. Really generous, my man.
Big up Davy Shire and all you guys who Davy Shire's gifted out membership. Make sure you say thank you, but also make sure you get involved with our members only content. We are absolutely bombarding the community section with it. You can't keep up. That's the complaints we're getting about it. It's that great. So make sure you hop on that. And also Neil Thomas, you as well, my man. Good to have you on board. Make sure you get in on the fantasy football as well. Big up Martin Nicebridge. Great to see you. Says Dave's on Spanish time. Big up King Huddle. He says, shut up, Neville. Big up Alpesh. Davy Shire says Dave's still recovering from the other day. I was worried for him. And Jack, the United win. Nah, look, my voice, post-match reaction, it completely went. But look, that's just what joy does to me. It's absolutely brilliant. And it's great to my voice going for absolutely screaming and in jubilation with joy rather than screaming at idiots on the football field who can't play football. So that's a huge change. Davey, great to see you. And he also says, big up Jacko, big up Ellie. Great to see you. We're way behind. We're way behind. So we're just going to crack on with it. We're going to make best use of the guys' times. Welcome, every single one of you. And look, Jacko, let's kick it underway, my man.
Get underway, and might as well start with Alan here and kind of give him a question because he is, a new opinion. I think at least, just meeting him now, and I'm looking forward to what he has to say about the Don and also what he has to say about the new appreciation for the Don. And might as well just come out and just ask you, did you see kind of the Twitter reaction to, the game against Man United? All of a sudden, Paratici memes and everything were showing up everywhere, Alan. What do you make of this resurgence of his reputation?
So for me, I'm going to say he's made some good acquisitions for Spurs, but he's made also some bad acquisitions for Spurs over time. But like I always say, the polarization in football fans these days is if you like somebody, only ever good. You can't ever criticize and vice versa. For me, with Paratici, I don't think he's had a clear approach from what I've seen to the type of players. Also, people are saying that he's had a deal in mind, like he's got 5 or 6 on the go. If you've got 5 or 6 on the go, I don't think you can be as clear and concise in what you want to do. You can always have a backup of 5 or 6. I think it's a bit risky, or it means you don't have a clear plan. It's a scattergun approach. I'll give him praise for the people that he's got in and done well with. Bentancur, Kulusevski, although if I remember rightly, they weren't our first picks. But the people, obviously, he picked Basuma for Conte, who wasn't a Conte to play a free system. Spence was a club signing, but people overlook these type of things. When a player works well, obviously now Basuma's come good for Ange. People now will go, oh, look at him, he's brilliant, this and the other, Sarah and all that. But these guys were bought for Conte, not for Ange. Ange has used them well, and Ange has shown the type of players that they can be. And obviously, I've criticised Conte for the way he used these players, but I can't just give blind appreciation to somebody who's made mistakes. Obviously, everything he's done at the club, he really shouldn't be still at the club or having a say on it, but he is. And when it works and the player does well, it's all like, oh, we're following the system, we're following the stats. But when it goes wrong, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, but he's not having a say in this one. It's Gavanini, or it's this one, or it's that one. And I'm like, you got to try and be balanced in your approach. I'll give him praise for some of the signings he's had, although it's come good at a different time and not for the right manager that was bought for. But apart from that, he's made some bad signs as well, or he's had his hand in some bad signings as well for Spurs. So I just try and be consistent. People go sit on the fence, but I like to be balanced in my approach.
Just a quick follow-up, Alan. Do you feel like originally there was maybe more criticism for him than there was maybe praise? And do you feel like it's been a bit of a pendulum kind of swing all of a sudden, kind of overnight now with him?
No, I wouldn't say that, because when he first came in, loads of people were like, oh, Don Paratici's going to cook, he's going to do this, and all the signs were coming in. People were
definitely
like people were all saying he's cooking. And then when it started going wrong, right, like the wrong people were bought for this manager for Conte, people were saying, it's Conte's fault, it's the players' fault. They weren't blaming him, but you had to put blame in him getting the wrong people in at the time. So I just think people need to be give credit where it's due, and obviously criticize where it's due, because both can be right at the same time. A lot of football fans now go, because they like a player or like a manager, they can't say much bad about him. No, you need to be able to do both. So I'll give him praise for the players that have come good. I also give more of that to Ange than I do to Paratici.
Right.
Use them correctly.
I agree with that and disagree with it to a certain extent. Let me tell you why. I think, look, obviously, I think Ange, he plays more the Spurs way, and his system suits more of the players that Paratici signed here, the attack-minded players, ball-playing players. I fully understand that. But we can't dismiss that. We talk about being balanced.
Yeah.
We've got a left back in Edozie that Conte didn't have to use. Massive problem down that side last season. We've got Van de Ven at centre back that Conte wasn't allowed to use. He had to use Dyer. And that was a massive problem last year. He's got Vicario and goals. Last year we had a finished Hugo Lloris. That's a massive problem underneath Antonio Conte. And then we've also got James Maddison in there. So for me, I think, look, part of what you're saying I agree with, but part of it I disagree with, because we have to, be honest, not be honest, but we have to recognize that, we have addressed certain problem areas in this window, which also helps Ange Postecoglou.
Yeah, no, look, I would agree with that. I can take it when people bring up good points. It's absolutely fine. But also what I would say is that last window, like quite a lot of windows with Spurs, there's been problem areas that need to be sorted, not even before his time, that have taken too long to sort out. Obviously, it was with Paratici in the first season, and maybe even some now. We still need that second centre back, which we'll get onto later, and backup striker. But it's a continual thing for Spurs that the wrong areas get addressed at the wrong times. Whether that's him, whether it's from above or anything like that, so both, like I said, both can be true at the same time. So I'm not here to split hairs or, stuff like I can agree with your points.
Yeah.
What do you make of the pendulum swing that's kind of happened on Paratici, Brains?
I think it's kind of obvious that it would, but I think it comes more to I think there's multiple things happening at the same time. It's like, one, actually truly know what the structure of Tottenham Hotspur is and how we're acquiring players. So we see some things happening, and then we straight away go, oh, it's, Paratici the Don, he's cooking, and then all of a sudden a signing happens out of nowhere, and it's like, did he do that? What's the expense? So there's a lot of, the way Spurs work is just crazy with, your director of football or whatever you want to call him.
What's a Levy signing? What's a Paratici signing too, right?
Yeah, it's never
Conte told us.
It's never one proper system like a Brighton. It's never, even this whole data led thing. Then all of a sudden we go for someone who's got no data on them. Why is Valise coming in? Where's the data on this guy? He's only played a season. His own countrymen are saying he's too early. Where's the data on that guy? So it's I never really buy anything that's happening. I don't really know. That's why I try not comment too heavy on it. I just a lot of time with agents and kind of these types of sporting directors or people who are running the transfer window for a club. A lot of time I feel like they've got their address book. I just know how agents work, right? And they've got their address book and they work with certain people. So Paratici has strong links to certain clubs, and then he can get players off there. He can get deals done. Juventus will deal with Daniel Levy as the final, hurdle. And, Paratici will be texting him behind the scene, just stomach him, please. Just nod and say and smile. All right, I'll try. Do you know what I mean? But we're sitting there going, oh, but look at this guy that's over in this other place in the world. And Paratici will have no links with him. And then Spurs have to go around these other routes to try. And then you've got Daniel Levy going and working with a team who hate Daniel Levy. And then we're going to have to jump through hoops to get a deal done. And then out of the nowhere, another deal's done that you can tell has nothing to do with Paratici and his MO. So there's all these things happening at one time. So I find it very hard to come out with a big, strong opinion on Paratici. This signing was amazing for him. This signing was amazing. Oh, he got it wrong on that one. It's did he? Who got it wrong? Who's doing it? So I think it's just super. But I think the swing that's happening now, I think is just, it's hard to kind of put it on one person, but I think it's got a lot to do with there's a lot of positivity. A lot of people who did back Paratici are now kind of going see, and a lot of people who thought Paratici got it wrong, we're starting to see amazing things come out of the kind of signings that we didn't fully expect. But that's got also a lot to do with the fact of this manager's come in, he's a people person, he's ignited the entire squad, he's getting incredible things out of players that we would never have expected to see potential world-class elements of their game. So, I mean, who do you put these things on? I would sit back and go, I think Ange has brought a hell of a lot to this.
Mm.
I'm not sure. Like an agent,
He's bringing
people,
the signings to life.
Yeah, people can get players in, but as soon as Bentancur can come in, if Bentancur doesn't like rate himself and he doesn't like have what's in him to kind of lift this team and go for it, then it would have been a failed sentence. So it's on Bentancur as much as it's on anyone else involved with that signing. You know, I'm like more of a player-driven person. It's like Basuma comes in straight away, he's dealing with a stone-faced man going, everyone's rating you. You have to work for me. You have to show me you're phenomenal. So you're not going to be in the team. You don't know our system. Get out of here, right? So how's that going to work on Basuma? He's going to feel horrible. He's a brilliant player. He's going to feel, screw this guy. You know, and then immediately it's a wrong way to deal with someone. All of a sudden, Ange comes in, says, you're one of the best players in the Premier League. I want you to be that for us. All of a sudden, Basuma's having the time of his life. So it's people management.
I think the new appreciation of Paratici has come basically overnight because of how other teams have operated in the market. When you compare yourself to like what Chelsea have spent on midfielders and what other teams have spent on midfielders, then you sort of look at what we've spent, and now all of a sudden everybody's like, no wonder this guy's in jail, and you know, those sort of kind of memes and whatnot. And it is kind of then, you know, that you can see where then kind of kind of just the recency bias kind of comes into it, because we're now using all of this hindsight of what Chelsea and other clubs have spent on midfielders, and they still have problems. And Spurs fans now feel like, I even just said the other day, I went, you know, pretty overboard and said, you know, it almost looks like we have a world-class midfield at this stage. And we do kind of get, especially myself, you know, we might all of a sudden, you know, with the hindsight of all this other information of how other teams are playing, we then use that as kind of a basis to think that actually all of a sudden Spurs are cooking now. And then now that we've said Spurs are cooking, Paratici's been cooking this whole time, and those sort of kind of logic. And I feel like also my original bias from Paratici just came from the fact that we just had such dross signings under Steve Hitchen that the guy only needed to put in like 2 or 3 like good signings. And then I think people like myself are going to be all on board of what he was doing, because we were used to such failure, I felt like, in terms of the money spent previously under Hitchen. So it was, at least in my case, I was going to be pretty easily impressed. Yeah.
On what you were saying there about, you know, what Chelsea and other teams are spending on players and what we've brought in the door and how good they've looked recently, you know, I think you're right. That is where a lot of it comes from. But also, you know, a lot of it comes from, you know, the fact that yes, we've signed a couple of players in the problem areas, but a lot of the players we've signed before have also come to the fore. A lot of players that have been criticised before they even came in the door because of the mess and the continuous bad signings under Steve Hitchen. No matter what Paratici was doing, there was always people looking at players going, crap signing before they've even took the football pitch. And I always said with Paratici, you have to understand the size of the job this guy was tasked to come in to do, and also what job he's doing. He's not just in charge of incomings and outgoings. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say Paratici got everything right. He didn't. But name me a director of football across world football that has 100% accuracy. There isn't any. There are people do get things wrong, and I think clubs allow for that in terms of, you know, what director of footballs they're looking at. But obviously, you want one who gets more right than he gets more wrong. But when you look at it, you have to understand the amount of crap players we had here on massive wages that we had to try and ship out, and we're still under this problem today, by the way. It's still a problem that hasn't gone around. He never gets praised for the amount of players he has got out today, if people go back and look at it. But, you know, people always say, oh, but you can't get rid of players. But you can't get rid of players that don't want to go anywhere because they want to sign for a club for free because they want to look after their pockets. And that's what we're left with now. The likes of Dyer, Ndombele, people like that ain't going anywhere in a rush because they want to sign an on-fee when their contract's up. So he's done a lot of terms of outgoings, but also when he walked in here, he couldn't believe the lack of scouting department we had. He's had to build that. He's had to bring the personnel in. One big credit that no one gives him credit for. He's got Daniel Levy to listen to him. How many people have we heard come out on various platforms? You know, you had your guy Barber on Talk Sport, etc., going, I wasn't listened to. With Paratici, we're getting in the signings. So for me, the reason why it's looking so good now is because we're getting rid of some of the players that were a massive problem last year underneath Antonio Conte that caused us problems on the pitch, that were also part of the leadership group and the leaders in the dressing room. They're now nowhere to be seen. They're completely away from the squad. And I think, with the way we spend and our business model, which, look, I think most people don't agree with. We know we've got the money and we'd like to aim higher in the market. But if we're dealing with realism, the way Tottenham operate is the reason why it was always going to take time under Paratici to come good, because we operate so slowly and we don't want to go out and spend massive cash. So every deal we do takes so long to complete. And when you actually take a step back and look at it, and actually not only that, look what he's done for the youth system for years. Our youth players were leaving and being picked off by other academies and heading all across the world, all across Europe, right? Paratici, we've got our best crop now for as long as I can remember. He's managed to convince nearly every single one of them to tie themselves down to Tottenham Hotspur, despite the pathway being blocked in years gone by and everything else. So it's not only just players in that he's done well on. It's all the other areas of the club that he's helping build that are now all coming to fruition. Now, look, it's early days. We've got a long way to go. But we have to understand it was never going to be an instant fix with him because of how much work he had to do and the business model he had to operate under. Many people give someone like Steve Hitchen a free pass. They go, oh, but, what was the arguments people were saying to me at the time on streams? They were
I think the argument is that he was more, he had his arms tied behind his back more so than Paratici did, right?
Yeah. But it's sort of like, I've always argued, well, hang on, you don't hear Paratici making excuses for not getting deals done. The deals get done. And for me, I think we just have to look back on it now and everything he's done. And we're still continuing it on this day. It can't have been that bad if the club are willing to keep him as an advisor / DOF right now. And for me, I think when you look at the job the guy has done in total, I think you have to sit there and say he's done a good job for this football club.
Dave, let's look. I was just going to say, Dave, let's look at them really quickly. I just made a quick hit and miss list. So if you go through the hits, you've got Cutie, Sarr, Royal, Bentancur, Kulu, Basuma, Udoji, Foster, Perisic, and Porro. I would say they're all hits because we've seen good stuff from them consistently. And we're getting in a different system. We're seeing amazing stuff from them. Last season in an article, half of those were misses. So the perception of him was, oh, he's failed. Half of those were misses. Now they're all in the hit column with a new manager. So the misses, considering that what I just said there, the miss column has Galini. Okay, he's gone. He never really got a chance. He wasn't a great one, right? Gill, maybe jury's out on that because has he really had a chance? Would he have a bet? Actually, would he be the perfect left winger in this system? So maybe he goes in that corner. Richie, okay, so maybe Richie comes good with a goal or two. Maybe jury's out, but at the moment, maybe he's a miss. Spence, has he really had a chance? Has he had a run of games? Then you got
on that one. A little quick bone to pick on that one. Conte said it was a Daniel Levy signing.
Sure, yeah. So that's not really his, but as in him in the role. So then you've got like almost double the amount of the signings he's made have been hits, and if you're looking at like Sarr, Biz, Bentancur, they're not just hits, right? Like consider like someone goes out and gets a player in, whatever can happen. Those might be some of our best players that we have for the next 5 years. Do you know what I mean? Like those are like potential world-class players. Bentancur was, I think he was top 3 in the World Cup for midfielders and stats. So I think time will kind of tell, right? Yeah. Like someone got time will tell.
It seems like everybody's biggest problem has actually been his lack of outgoings. That seems to be, what a lot of people seem to be frustrated with. Just quickly, though, the super chat I want to give to Alan and to Dave here. Paul Markey saying, David mentioned the Don made some poor signings. I disagree, so please elaborate. He also said we should do everything to get the Don back. You're seeing both sides of it here, Alan. You're seeing, people like myself and Dave and Paul Markey here that think that the Don is the truth and we should do everything in our power to bring him back to this club. Do you feel like you're not as eager? I can tell that you're not as eager to bring him back. Do you feel like we should just move on from a Paratici?
Look, I haven't got a thing to say. I don't think he should be at Spurs. I said I don't think he should be at Spurs because of obviously the thing around him, what he was doing in Italy, obviously the charges against him. You don't really want to associate that with your club. But barring all that, if Spurs want to keep him on and he does well and he brings in good signings, it's absolutely fine. In regards to the list that Brains read out, I would say, look,
what has he gotten wrong?
No. So Porro for me, look, I think Porro as a winger is going to be great, but he was bought as a right back in a Conte defensive system. So like I say, wrong players bought for the wrong people. I don't think they had the foresight to know that when he was bought that Ange would be the guy to come in after Conte. I don't, because I think they were still trying to sign it, get him down to an extension for the extra year. So look, like I'm saying, it's worked out great. I don't take any away. The players we've got in now for the right manager, finally, this is how I liken it to when Poch came in. The right players for the right manager at the right time. So if it continues, I'm all for it. I'm not as, like, when I see problem areas that have come good, okay, that would be good, but they weren't meant in the right way. Some of it could be lucky, but I'm here for that luck. Spurs need luck for a change. So
true.
Well, if we're going forward and things fall in our lap and go the right way with the right manager, the right players playing that system, and you see the better, like Spurs continuing this play, and obviously players getting better, I'm all for it. I'm not sitting here saying never have Paratici back, or I think he's been a flop. I just going to say you need to take the good with the bad from what we've seen so far. But if it continues to go in the right direction, it's benefiting Spurs. I'm happy.
But just a little point on not just the fact of some of these players being players who have worked out. If they've worked out, it means that they clearly had talent. I mean, the first game Porro played, everyone was like, "Oh my God, oh no!" Like we all thought it was the answer, and then he just got ripped to shreds. Which is horrible for him because he should never be dropped into a team in the first day, and it's horrible for a young player. Like, but then if you look at some of these signings, you look at the cost, the deals that we've done here, like they've been. We've got Basuma for 30 million, 35 million. That is an unbelievable steal. Like the cost that we got Bentancur, obviously had been at Juventus for a while. He'd won a lot of things. We got him at an absolute steal. The ones that have failed or that are currently in the miss column are ones where we've paid way more than what they're worth. Gill, we should never be paying that for Gill when really he's not Premier League proven. Richie, and also the other thing, Richie obviously 60 million, but these are also potentially not Paratici signings. So the ones where we haven't got an amazing deal and a good money deal for have been Levy going in, paying way over the amount, breaking all his own rules to get a player when the whole team is saying, no, we don't want to bring that guy in. So you have to always.
It's so hard to know which one is more the Levy and which one's more the Paratici. But at the same time, you can't just rule out that Paratici didn't have any influence on like a Levy signing, because even someone put earlier in the comments, like Paul Markey has said here, Richie was a Conte and Spence was a Levy signing. And I feel like that's where we also get kind of a bit confused, is how much influence did Paratici have on the Spence signing? A lot of people put in the comments that Paratici was there scouting Spence, for some of those Forest games, yet it was kind of seen as an overall, a Levy signing at the end of the day. So it is difficult.
Well, we know Conte didn't want him. We know that. It feels like he was stuck between a rock and a hard place between Levy and Conte. He felt like he could not make that work between the two.
I think the answer to what you're kind of saying, Brains, though, is we're almost inevitably going to have this sort of mystery and lack of transparency, because we know Daniel Levy likes to put his hands into the transfer window, and he likes to have his own influence and his own say when it comes to it. It's not like a Brighton or maybe other clubs where it's kind of obvious who's making the decisions and where it's all coming from. With Spurs, it's not that obvious, and it never has been. It's been sometimes Daniel Levy really pushing, the signing through, and then other times it's been the scouts and whatever power they might have in pushing the signing through, but we never get a clear answer or even a clear idea. And so we're always, I think, going to be left in this mystery of, was it really Levy that pushed it through? Because sometimes we're told it's a Paratici signing, yet Levy is the one flying into Lisbon to get the deal done and sealed, for all the glory and all the praise and everything for it. And that's where it gets a bit mixed up, is because Levy takes such a hands-on approach himself, even though we don't want him to.
Yeah.
Do we maybe go into the database model here, Dave? Because, this question I had specially lined up for you, but I mean, just quickly though, Paul Markey did say earlier, did you feel like do you agree that Richarlison was a Levy signing, Spence was a Levy signing? Would there be any other Levy signings that we could, identify?
Look, the reason why I say, The reason why I say Spence is because Conte sort of made that very, very clear, right? Richarlison, look, if you want to put that down as a Paratici signing, do. Porro again, you know, Daniel Levy went in to save the day on that deal. So, yeah, look, if you want to give all the signings that were made under Paratici's tenure, you want to divide them up between good and bad. Good outweighs the double. It doesn't matter what you want to put on that list. The good outweighs the double. And for me, I think I think he's done a good job. And look, I'm happy to continue under the current model of Gabbanini, the scout, and then also Paratici working as the advisor. I'm happy to continue on with that as long as it's showing improving results. I'm not going to sit here and say Paratici is perfect. You know, to Alan's point earlier, you know, he could have done a lot more at centre back a lot quicker to help maybe some of the managers. It's one position I've been screaming out for quite some time. Why haven't we got onto that sooner, considering it's cost us a hell of a lot on the football pitch? And if we would have done it sooner, would we have gone that extra mile under Jose? Would we have gone that extra mile on Conte? So there are some things that I don't agree that Paratici's done. But overall, I think he's done good for the football club. And look, the only reason why I'm sort of bringing it up is just because, you know, we have to understand he's still acting as an advisor. And for me, I think he still holds more or less the same power as what he was doing as a director of football. It's just being filtered over in an advisory role, and everyone else is still continuing on the vision. The reason why I'm happy to continue underneath it, though, just quickly, is because if you bring in a new director of football, he's going to bring in new staff, new vision, new players, new scouts, new way of doing things and everything else. And then you're just going to continue on that cycle behind the scenes. If you really want managers to walk in here and hit the ground running, you have to have everything in place around the scene, in behind that manager, in terms of your scouting department, your coaches, etc., so that regardless of the manager, a manager might want to bring in a couple of coaches. Fine, let them do that. But if you've got everything else implemented and it works, every manager that comes in here will have a chance to hit the ground running, will have a chance to succeed. So for me, that's why I say continue with it while it's working. You know, not only do we have the senior squad now, but we've got a lot of good players in the under-21s and the underage groups that we can now start filtering through. I think I was on Sean's show earlier on with Johnny. Johnny was saying this, and it was a good point that, Alan, you know, Johnny, he's always on yours. I don't know whether to call him your co-host or not, but he was saying, you know, rather than Spurs producing one or two every couple of years, you've got under 21s, under 18s, under 17s right now. So you've got 2, 3, 4 good years of players being filtered through. And, you know, you look at Arsenal down the road, right? The core of their rebuild came from some of that academy, players that care about the club, this, that, and the other. And look what it went on to form. And for me, we need to do that. We need to do that. We need to get some players through that really care about this club, but most importantly, are good enough to play for this club. We've pushed players through that haven't been good enough and hung on to them for some time. It's now about producing elite talent and coming through, and I think we'll do that. But look, overall, I'm happy to continue on with the model because, like I said, you've got to get the things right behind the scenes for managers to succeed.
We have some questions on that. We have some questions on that database model. But yeah, sorry, Alan, go ahead.
Look, this is why I say that I give credit where it's due and take criticism, because it's not like Spurs don't have a history of this. Kyle Walker, how long do we take to sort that area out? Danny Rose, how long do we take? Toby Alderweireld and Vertonghen, how long has it taken? Norris has been on the decline for 3 years. How long has it taken to find a successor? Ericsson, how long has it taken to sort that out? So hopefully we don't do the same with the Harry Kane situation and buying a top quality striker, obviously, or the striker that's going to fit Ange's system. So it's not just pros and cons for Paratici. We've had years of this at Spurs. So as long as we've got a core idea and the way we want to go forward, and people who, whether it's Gabbanini with Paratici and working together with Ange, as long as the right people, like I said on my channel numerous times, if the right people are finally brought in to back a manager and how he wants to play, rather than all this club signing, this won't ball for me, this won't ball for that, I'm here for it. Because this goes back years with managers saying, I never wanted that. I wanted this person. I was given this one. So, like I said, as long as Spurs are actually finally getting their shit together behind the scenes, apologies for swearing, then it's all good. I'm all for it. But we've had it for years at Spurs.
Yeah.
A lot of those problems, I don't want to muddy the waters here, but a lot of those problems I think were inherited by Steve Itchen, actually, not as much Paratici. And that sort of speaks to, I think, how bad of a job he did. Was he inherited all those problems of Vertonghen leaving, Walker leaving, Eriksson leaving, and those were big shoes to fill. But he kind of went 0 for 3, 0 for 4, I think, in doing so. And then that was part of the problems that Paratici, I think, inherited, was he was inheriting kind of problems at Spurs that should have been fixed a few years ago, like should have been kind of fixed before he had arrived. But I guess that sort of speaks to how big the job he had. Paul Markey says, Brains' list wins the argument for the Dong. The list speaks for itself, Brains.
Well, I mean, it's like if you're going to add Conte into that, which I think is controversial, because he can't see that Conte is going to get backed or not. You know, like Conte wanted signings, he probably would have had a whole bunch. We saw how many defenders were linked, but if the club doesn't make that a priority, you can't then blame Paratici, and you also can't blame Conte. Conte's system. Now, I don't agree with the way Conte treats players and the way his style is. He's very old school, you know. But if you're not going to give him what he needs, then his system's going to fall apart. It's only ever going to go to the point where he's going to explode and be angry, and then Paratici is going to jump between these two, and it's going to be a complete hellhole. But just looking at that, the list, and being like 10 signings in the time he's been here, to have 10 signings that we are all looking at like, wow, okay, these could be huge for us. Just I love how it's starting to look with Doji, Bez, Sarr. I love what they give us. They give us a flair that we haven't seen for a while, and what we used to love to see, you know, normally on our wings or normally like in central positions, but to see that we've got that kind of thing happening all over the pitch now it's something else. And then you get the right manager eventually to, you know, manage people in a good way and use a system that allows every player to express themselves in a really cool way. Like, he wants people to step over the ball and go the other way and just absolutely rip the arse out of players. You can see, like, Postecoglou wants that. So the fact that we have that, I think, is a really good thing.
Yeah, I'm completely with you.
Big up Paul Markey.
Legend, Paul. Let's just quickly talk about the database model. And, you know, we don't need to focus as much on Paratici. This is more kind of just a question about whether you really trust it or not, because I know plenty of people are probably not as big of a fan of the stats, or, you know, the way that Americans like myself have statified the game and, you know, all this data kind of inserted into football and everything like that, right? And it's whether you really trust it or not, because apparently Spurs are, in a way, kind of bringing this on board. And I guess just the question really is, you know, do you trust this data or not to be able to replace maybe some of the players that need replacing? Like, you look at maybe Harry Kane that's just been brought in, you know, or just left, for example. Let's say we ended up trying to replace Harry Kane with a much cheaper, less proven, less well-known, you know, a guy that you do have to Google search and isn't, you know, a household name. What if Spurs, you know, the model and the algorithm, what if it produces, let's say, like a Gift Orban, or let's say like a Brennan Johnson, somebody that isn't exactly a household name, hasn't really, you know, been around much, you know, still has a lot more to go. Do you trust that model enough, you know, to give it, you know, its patience, to give it its time? Start with you, Alan. What do you think? Do you trust the stat nerds?
Look, stat nerds. So I do, to a point, but my only like is, let's look at the whole stats-based model that we're working with. The first player we signed was a goalkeeper, was it not, if I remember rightly? And for the longest period, it was Raya. So the stats were pointing to him. Now, I'm not saying that the stats weren't there, like having like Vicario as a close second, and then we went for the cheaper option, but there was no talk of Vicario until he was announced, like I was saying, now we're interested in him after the Raya one went. So I'm like, okay, like you say, we can't see behind the scenes. So is it the fact that Raya was the guy that fits the Tinsley and we went for a cheaper option like Spurs notoriously do? I don't know. But in regards to everything else I've seen, Van de Ven, Ange wanted at Celtic. He got him at Spurs. So it's a person who's clearly identified as that. In regards to, who is it? I even said I didn't think Phillips, but a Celtic fan told me in my chat that he wanted Phillips too. So it looks like people are being bought, whether young or, you know, on the up, or good players that were wanted. Literally, I cannot think for the life of me who's come in now.
On Phillips, though, Alan, just on Phillips quickly, I would say that let's not forget Spurs tried to get him last summer, but Blackburn wanted 10 million and we didn't want to fork it out.
Yeah, no, and that's fair enough. But like in regards to what I'm saying in regards to the data is that he's being earmarked. Madison, Ange wanted him. He's been got. Obviously, we've known for the longest time we've not had a playmaker. The last couple of seasons of Spurs, you've seen us go so slow, side to side, and not be able to have a person that's been able to pick a ball down the channel or break the lines to pass through to the striker. Now we've got that. So the right areas are being addressed, the right players in the right system. So on the whole, I would say it looks like they are going with a clear, concise plan of what they want to do, whether you say a statistics or not, or like look at the stats. But the right players are being bought. But I'll go back to the Raya and then Vicario when he weren't mentioned. I'm thinking, is it 100% going that way, or is it the fact that if we will try that way, and if we can't, we'll just go for backup options who we know we can save money on, because that's typically what Spurs do.
The way I see it, Alan, I sort of see it as like you use it always. You always got to have some sort of stats maybe to begin with, maybe to just look at maybe how certain players compare to others, but you also maybe don't use that with every position that you're going for, because, for example, this Harry Kane situation seems like one where do you really need to make it such a data-based, type of pick? Maybe you do more the seeing eye and just what you feel like fits Ange's system. It doesn't need to be some algorithm produced player for it. And I might be dramatizing how it is, but Brains, do you feel like that is, would that worry you that, Spurs are just shooting numbers into an algorithm and then the number just produces Gift Orban and that's the guy that is going to replace Harry Kane? Are you okay with that being, the way of going about it? Or am I kind of also not giving this model maybe enough credit? Am I kind of
No, I'm not a massive fan in stats, or not that I'm not a massive fan of stats. Stats are important. Obviously, football now, every single player wears stuff, their heart rate's being monitored, they're in training, they're being monitored, how much they move, everything is stats. But that's not what we're talking about here. When people are putting in chats like the red and green bars, XG and all that, if you're talking about that, then I don't know, none of that BS. Like, stats are used in the scouting of a young player and then they follow him over the years, so when there's no way that anyone in the world is going to convince me that Ange Postecoglou comes in with a very specific style of play, and then Tottenham Hotspur sit down with a list of 40 players who are all stat driven. Oh, these guys are great these are here. Check their stats out. No, he will come in knowing the players in the world that he likes, that he's always been interested in. They'll suggest players who might fit his system, and then they will use all of the information to make a decision. But then they will go and watch the player over and over and over. They'll watch tape on them. They'll get all the different scouting applications up, and they'll do an overall assessment. But it's never going to be as simple as, check this striker's stats out, check his XG out, like last season. Oh yeah, let's go and spend a certain amount of money. Like as if it's stat driven until there's a cheap deal on the cards. Do you know what I mean? It's like that, then it goes out the window, right? So no,
I agree.
I don't really think it's got too much to do with the stats. You assess your target, and then you use all of the information you can get on them to paint a picture, so that you risk assess. Are you really going to dump 30 million on someone who might have, only 2 seasons of football? Like, that's risk, right? And then he doesn't like risk. So, or do you go with someone who's played for 5 or 6 years, and then you look at stats over 5 or 6 years, and you have an idea of the staying power of a player, and then you put it against your risk assessment of the costs, and then you do all that to kind of rationalize and sell it and pitch it to your manager, and then you go and make the deal. So I think it's not as simple as a couple of stats on Y-Scout.
Look, for me, I think smartly using it would be using it in leagues across the world that maybe we don't have scouts in, that we don't even want to cover, some of the smaller leagues around the world. And that's where people say we want to be like Brighton, right? We want to be like Brentford. That's what their model throws up. They have it all in the smaller leagues around the world, and they're able to pick up bargains and sell them on for huge profits. So that's what we should be using it for outside of the big leagues, outside of Europe. We should be running it through the Asian leagues, running it through the South American leagues and stuff like that. And it will flag players up. And then after that, then you go and send your scout out to have a look. Then you do your homework into the character of the player, how he lives his life. For me, it's a tool and a vehicle to guide you in the right direction, but should never be, your final purchase off that sort of system. You shouldn't just go, Gift Orban. You know, yeah, stats great, sign him. There's so much more work that goes into it. But it's a good guide and a good indicator. And Jack, it's off that film there. What's it called? Moneyball, that baseball one. That guy who built the baseball team off the stats. And
Sean
stuff
Maddox
like that.
says, Dave. Sean Maddox says this isn't Moneyball. We aren't buying runs. We are filtering to see what players we should look more closely at.
Yes.
So it's not exactly Moneyball. It's not maybe, you know, as similar to it, but I don't know. Like, I just feel like it can be the case where we do need to take some pages out of the books of Brighton and Brentford because they know what they're doing. We also are maybe more similar to a Brighton and a Brentford in that we don't spend as much as Chelsea do and some of the other bigger clubs. So we have to find some sort of niche, I think, where we kind of do a bit of both. And that's what I sort of meant earlier, Dave, that maybe certain positions, we probably do go for this more of this database model because we might end up saving a bit of money where we don't spend as much as we probably could. And I know that does, you know, make people frustrated as per usual. I understand, but it is kind of how Spurs operate, where they are going to maybe look to do that every now and again. But then you can't just operate that way solely, because I do think, for example, Dave, this Harry Kane situation, do you really use this database model to go after solving the Harry Kane problem? I think you use a bit of it, but really not that much of it. I think you go after whatever Ange thinks and whatever maybe the whole team around Spurs and that scouting department think is the right ideal candidate.
Yeah, 100%. Look, when you're talking about scoring goals, it's the hardest thing to do in football. Always has been, always will be. And, you know, not everybody is cut out for scoring goals at the rate Kane does. Now, look, we ain't going to replace Kane. I've accepted that. But we should still be in one of the top 5 leagues across Europe, looking to get in one of the best strikers in them league and bring him across and put him in there, because there's certain positions, like you're alluding to, Jack, that you just need that right player in there, that you need that top dog in there. Other positions, fullback, stuff like that, you can get away with using the system. But centre back, you know, I'd argue also a striker, you need someone that's already proven at that level in the top league to come in here. Romero was proven with Atlanta at that level when he came in here. And for me, we need someone of that ilk. A Gift Orban is a huge, huge risk, a huge risk. And that one definitely was flagged up by the scouting model for sure. It's from a lower league, and you know, one that the Spurs wouldn't have scouts covering or right across. It's flagged up. They've gone and had a look at them. But it's about what ambition do we have for Ange Postecoglou now? Do you want to give him the very best opportunity and go and get a striker that's going to deliver goals? Or are you going to make it even harder for him by bringing in a younger guy who there's going to be flaws in his game? He could come in and hit 2 goals straight away. Then he might go 3-4 games without scoring because he's still trying to acclimatise to the league. And for me, we need consistency up front. People goals come from everywhere. Great, fantastic. But you also had Paratici who scored 30 goals. So this notion that Ange Postecoglou doesn't need a striker that bags your goals is absolutely horseshit and codswallop. Of course he needs a striker that bags your goals. You know, unless we want to pretend Paratici is a ghost that doesn't exist.
So can I just, I completely get that. I completely get what you're saying. So like in regards to Orban, like people say that he's only doing it in Belgium. Okay, but he can't help where he's at. He's doing it at least. It's not like he's being poor in Belgium or going through. So he's getting the goals. From what I've seen of him, because I didn't know anything beforehand, I can't say that I know every league or every player. But from what I've looked at him, I think on the eye test and what he's producing in Belgium, I think there's a player there. Is it like the top level we need to kick us on now? Probably not, but who knows? But I would then have a caveat to that in Richarlison's proven in the Premier League. He's been as he is, and he hasn't hit the ground running. He doesn't seem to
proven he's garbage.
You can look at it both ways. I'm always a firm believer of Premier League proven, but sometimes there is that person that bucks the trend that doesn't quite always work out. But look, who else is there we're looking at in the striker that may be able to come in and do anything like that? I haven't seen another name linked that I think would be.
Brendan Johnson has been one of the names produced from this database model, it looks like. Would you accept that?
Oh, show me his stats.
He's more of a winger, isn't he?
You hope so, but maybe they see him as a striker.
Well, if they see him as a striker, actually, to be fair, who's the Brighton player that we were linked with? But they were very like. That's it. So, there are other names. Look, I think if you've got an Ange system, I think the way he plays, I think a younger striker who can press, who's got more about and more energy and all that, that's going to obviously put in the work up top as well, is going to be more beneficial to the team as a whole. I think the goals will come. like I said with Auburn, I don't see him like double guessing himself when I've seen like the things of him scoring. He's arriving in the right place at the right time. He's got a right foot. He can hit with the left as well. He's not afraid to take hard shots like I've seen him with scissor kicks and stuff like that. And he like we're scoring that, so he's got confidence. I'm not against it. I understand what you're saying. I don't think he's nowhere near the level of Kane, and maybe that's what we need. So I think we're in the middle. But if we only get in Auburn to build for the future, I don't think it's a bad shout.
No, I agree 100%. So I would take him in a heartbeat, but because I'm comparing him to Richie, and maybe that's the wrong thing to do because Richie is just so not that. Like you would think with Richie's body, he would be bodying guys off the ball, kind of like what Orban does, but Richie isn't, you know. And obviously, it's hard to look at Richie because he obviously is a player who's suffering. You know, why is Richie? This is the thing that does my head in. Everyone else is having a great time. Everyone else looks like they've finally found, you know, they've got their dad watching them as the coach, and they're flaring up. Why is Richie all of a sudden went into a shell? Why is he struggling with confidence? Obviously, because he's having to come in and be Spurs centre forward after Harry Kane. That's a huge thing. It's almost, and he's been here behind Harry Kane. So everyone's talking, everyone's saying Richie's shit. Every game that he fails to score, it's going to compound the stress and the pressure. And I just say, when someone's going through that, we could wait for a very long time for that to break. They either do change it or they don't. It's 60 million quid that we've got on the line here, hoping that he's just going to change it. He goes off the pitch, Son comes into the center. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, like way better. This is way better. You know, like I say, don't keep going down this road because I think it might. It's like last season when he wouldn't drop Sonny. You're only going to compound the problems, and unless you're just going to take a person aside, say, look, we'll bring you on, and we'll slowly start to get your confidence back up. So I think it's a dangerous thing that we're doing here with Richie. I think he thinks he's got to come in and fill Harry Kane's shoes. I don't think Orban or Kyogo, if were brought in, I don't think they'd look at it like that. I think they just go, give me it, let me have a go, you know?
I just want to jump on two things you said there. Look, I've said the same thing. People have said give Richarlison time. Okay, so we give him time and he doesn't hit the thing and we don't sign a striker before the end of the window. Then we you know, it takes away from up. Because for me, I've said the same thing. Son, I think, should be through the middle. He's captain. He should be through the middle. You saw the difference, like when he came in the middle and Richarlison went off. I think you then put even a Solomon or a Perisic or even a Doji up. And if you want to put somebody else, like you've got options. I don't want to take Richarlison, not sign another striker. Richarlison not work, then put Son. Richarlison be put out to pasture, and then we've got limited our options up front. I think Son through the middle, a second striker, or then you can have Son on the left if you bring another second striker, and then you can always rotate. I think that's what Spurs have at the moment. We've got options. We can rotate, we can invert and stuff like that. And you've got, whereas Spurs have been predictable in the last 2 or 3 seasons, now we've got a team where you go, oh, what are they going to do? Who are they going to start? They can change throughout. And I think we need to do that. I don't want to give Richie time. He failed. We're not bringing anyone in. And then we're like, what do we do? And then we take away from people going, then we become more predictable to teams. I don't want that.
If you're all right with Sonny being moved in the middle, then Alan, if you're all right with that happening, would you be okay then with Spurs signing like another winger then? Because if Sonny is sort of seen as the alternative to Richie at striker, would you then bring in another winger? Would be okay with that, or is that not the right move?
You could go either way. I think you could have a winger, or I think you could have another striker, because if you want bringing in a young striker, you want to not throw him in because everyone's going to, like Brain said, everyone's going to be, or I think Dave said, next Harry Kane and all that, people are going to put that on them straight away. So you can get them used to it. Like I said, you can then put in certain games, Son out to the left, have the striker through the middle, and it's just another dimension, another option for Spurs to have. Or if you want to have Son through the middle and have Richarlison as a backup, then you get another winger in, Solomon, and then you, like Solomon, for me, is more direct run at people. You can have somebody who's more like wing based, and then you've got like it's not working, then you start putting balls into the middle and stuff like that. You can do a lot of things with this team as it is in the moment. That's why I don't want to get bogged down with it's got to be Richarlison or us, because that makes Spurs weaker for me.
Do you know what? Just quickly on that, I hear you, and I think you make some good points. And however, we've been here before with Tottenham, right? Dyer, centre mid to centre back. Davies, left back into left centre back. You know, we're trying to make square pegs fit in round holes. Just go out and buy the positions. We're talking, the only reason why we talk about Sonny moving them inside and then bringing them out and putting Richie inside is because they're not bagging the goals that we need between them. So that's why you end up having to mix it and rotate it. We shouldn't be in this situation because we should never have sold someone like Harry Kane. The reason why you don't have to rotate Harry Kane is because he does his job week in, week out. So it's hard to rotate someone that guarantees you scoring goals and assisting goals and linking up play the way he did. And I'm gonna take in Paul Markey's super chat here as well with this, Jacko, where he says, forget the data and Orban. Veliz is the new Kane. Fact, the young Argentinian striker we just signed. Here's my problem with this, right? I'm all for us implementing the data model. But where I'm a bit skeptical about it in terms of identifying that striker to replace Harry Kane is with Brighton. They had their first 11 out there established in the Premier League. And then that Brighton, they scouted all the players young, brought them into the underage academies and filtered them through that way. And then once the older players started to move on, they had a good eye on these guys. They had good samples of these guys. They knew that they were good enough and they filtered them through. With us still buying in a gift Orban, we don't know whether he's good enough for the Premier League. We don't know whether he's going to hit the ground running. We're taking a gamble off what we've seen at another club. So for me, I don't think we should be rushing so much into using a data-driven model to go and get a striker to replace Harry Kane. We should bring in a striker, and if you spend a certain amount of money on a striker, he'll guarantee you goals. And if you aim in a certain, if you earn in a certain bracket as well, like we spent 60 million on Richarlison, but how did we end up spending that when Daniel Levy was trying to take advantage of Everton's money problems at the time? We still end up paying over the price. But we would have been better off adding 20 million on that and going and getting someone like a Vlahovic. I'd even take Tammy Abraham in here. You know, players that are experienced at that level, that know all the little tricks of the trades, that have all the movements already worked out. And then you sort of use that scouting data to go, okay, who's the next guy? And you go and bring him in. But with Tottenham, we've already done that. We've got Donnelly. We've got Dane Scarlett still sitting around. We've brought in Veliz. We've got Sunsup Bell. We've got Will Lancashire. We don't need any more of these guys. You know, we need someone that knows how to score goals. With the Premier League is the best league in the world. It's the hardest league in the world. You need someone at that top end and in crucial areas that's going to bag you goals. It's that simple.
I like Spurs GCTV's kind of thought here on the database model. And I actually think I wish I had said this earlier. He says, use the data to draw up a short list. That's the starting point. Then follow it up with thorough investigation. Also use common sense to identify a right fit, such as what we did with Madison. And I think that's maybe where Spurs could actually take maybe more of a page out of. And that's something that I could see us realistically trying to do. And that makes the most sense, where you do kind of build a big list, you build up your short list, and it's probably quicker and more efficient to do it kind of through some of these kind of database type of, models and searches and whatnot. And then from there, you kind of work a bit differently and you go about it a bit more, and, the analytics. And also, we didn't mention this, but I think it was Neil Shafton said in the comments that data, there is no statistic for mentality. There is no statistic for how many times they do this celebration and things like that. You don't know when a player is going to be able to handle the pressure, whether they're going to be able to deal with, a new country, all those sort of things. And that also goes into it. So the data really, of course, only goes so far. When it comes to Veliz being the new Kane, if that's what you mean there, Paul Markey, I must say, must be you doing your own research, because I remember when we first bought this guy, he did not seem too keen on him, Paul Markey. So maybe he's turned faith on Mr. Veliz here. Big up to you, Paul. And then also Shearman has grabbed a Flat Cap membership. Big up to Shearman. Back to that question earlier on sort of Kane, not Sonny, moving into kind of the middle there. William Catucci says Son's physicality lets him down as a striker. Do you agree with that, Brains?
No, I don't think so. I think the thing with Son is we saw little shades in that game of him kind of starting to enjoy his football again and play better. And I think Son is a perfect example of a confidence player. Once his confidence gets up, he starts scoring like worldies and does amazing things and picks up the ball from his own 18-yard box and goes on a run. He's a classic confidence player, and this is why it was important to give him the captain's armband, because that will boost his confidence. So bringing him into the center and telling him, if Ange telling him there's only one person who's going to do something that Harry Kane could have done, and that's you, because you've been here doing it with Harry Kane. So take on the responsibility of being captain. You are the best at this job here, and you go ahead. And I think, I genuinely think we will see Son rise to that challenge. He's the type of player that does, that's why he is captain of his country. It's why he's captain now. It's like, I don't think Son's physicality kind of lets him down. If you're gonna, unless you're gonna use him as Son's gonna be in the halfway line, back to goal, 2 defenders on him, and you're gonna pass the ball to him. Nah. You're going to use him like you use Kyogo. Like you're going to play Ange's system. Like, and it was interesting seeing the Athletics Tifo video on what happened on the weekend and what tactics let Man United down, and what the problem is with Spurs. And it's one of these things that everyone is kind of identifying, that Spurs are playing such good football now, but this problem with the inverted wingers is not working, and it's creating more problems on how they score goals. Like not having a person who just gets into the 4 yards out in the area of uncertainty behind a centre back and bang, goal. Like you even saw it on the weekend. We got into some situations where we could have got the ball across, but Kulu didn't take it to the line. When he takes it to the line, what happens? Goal. Chaos in the box.
Yeah.
Ball, goal. So this is Ange's system, and we got to see it work once or twice. But this is the problem with having players on the wings who are inside forwards, who want to go, cut inside and hit the back post. That's good, and they better score then, because when it doesn't work, then you're basically losing the chances of them getting to the byline and cutting it back for clear goals. And that's where strikers like Kyogo, and that's where Son has to learn to play. That's where you would get the benefit of a striker who's just going to dart into that front post. And, so I think this is the problem, that Ange ball's not fully working yet, because of what Dave's saying, we still do have square pegs and round holes in certain situations. Where it's working beautifully is the player who has to be in his position is in his position. When it gets up to the top to the attack, we kind of have great names and great players, but they're not really where they should be, Look,
just to piggyback on what Brendan was saying there, let's look at some strikers that have never been physical. Jermaine Defoe, Robbie Keane. Dimitar Berbatov, one of the most technically gifted footballers I've ever seen in my life, and I had the pleasure of watching him live. He wasn't known for his physical strength. He was just so good, he could beat you in a heartbeat. These players have been top quality strikers. I'm not saying that Son's going to be Harry Kane to get 30 goals.
Yeah.
But the movement that we've lacked up front under Richarlison, I think Son can do that. When you get behind, like Kulu did at the weekend, drag a ball back, you need somebody who's going to make that run across the front post. Yeah. Or hold back. I haven't seen that from Richarlison. There's a couple of times when the ball got put into the area and he was stumbling over the ball. His feet weren't set. And I think that's confidence and mentality as well. But I think Son would be onto it in a heartbeat. And like I said, I've been very critical of Son in over the last year. Dave was on my channel. I think we had a really long debate about Son. As we are right now, I think Son does the best job in that position if we're not going to get a striker in, or I just think he does the best job in that, even if we do get a young striker in, if that's the way we go.
Yeah. Whoops, sorry. I was on mute there. Big up to William. It's a great talking point. My sort of answer to it is that I know Richarlison makes most sense because of how big he is, and just he has all the physicality of what you would think a regular striker would have. But I feel like Sonny maybe has the benefit of from what he had to learn last season. Last season, Conte made him play with his back to goal a lot, and he had to learn how to play more with his back to goal. And considering that Richarlison doesn't seem to be impressing many people, even though I've kept my faith in him, I still will be realistic and be honest that he hasn't impressed me all that much yet, and I need to see more from him. And if we're going to look at maybe which player is going to be at least slightly better, they don't have to be perfect, but if they're going to be slightly better with their back to goal, maybe Sonny actually could be a bit better because he's worked on it from last season. Even some of the clips from, yesterday, the last match, I actually did see some first time passes that he was just playing right back to the guy that he received it from, that we were asking Richie to do all match that he wasn't able to properly do. So I do think Sonny has the benefit of the movement too, because probably Sonny's best attribute, along with his finishing and his pace, is actually just the fact that he always makes the right run and he always finds himself in the right space and the right time. It is kind of something maybe isn't recognized because you look at other parts of his game, but he always does seem to be making the perfect run for Kane or whoever else it was to play him through. Or when you see him, receiving the ball, he seems to have acres of space, wide open, picking up the ball. And that's because he set himself up with his movement to be in the right spot. And I do think he's actually improved slightly, and maybe not to the level that we need him to yet, but I do think his overall hold-up play has actually improved because Antonio Conte basically forced him to improve it with kind of last year's system. And I know we have frustrations with him, but I think he improved it in some ways. And also Paul Markey. Think about this. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, think about this. Think about like your memories over the last few years of Sonny. He's one of his best goals is being slipped through, and then he's in behind the defender and he's running through on goal. That is like where you want Sonny, right? But that's a number 9 run. That is running the channel. That's coming diagonally behind the defender into the area of uncertainty, and that's where you want a great striker. But then also the amount of times that Sonny has actually been the 9 in the 6-yard box, tapping a ball home. Sonny's done that a lot because Kane would drop a lot. So Sonny's actually more. Now I think about if you ask me, who's going to be if they are on the front foot and you have Maddison doing that lovely little turn swivel and he's on his front foot. Who would you rather in front of Maddison making the little run through the lane and behind? Son, who can finish with both foot no matter which way he takes a touch, or Richie, who is really struggling at right leg. Like there was a chance against Man
Sonny
United
will be on sides too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sonny knows the time is run, but there was a chance for me. I was screaming at the screen. There was a chance where the ball was bubbling around in the 6-yard box. I'm not sure if it was the one that came off the post. It may have been actually in that hole. We hit the crossbar post twice, and one of those balls actually fell right down to Richie, and he was just flailing around and he kind of got off balance. It's like your only job is to watch where the ball is going and then pop up in the 6-yard box behind or in front of the defender and tap home. Why are you falling around on the ground? And that for me is like clearly someone whose head is just, he's panicking in situations, and it's so much so that he so wants to do well instead of just relying on being natural. And that's the problem. A number 9 in the system that Ange needs has to be a natural, just tap the fucking ball in the goal. Just be a natural goal scorer. And I just don't think that is Richie's game.
I know what you mean by that moment. And I actually thought he did initially well to like see what was happening. It looked like he was reading that was about to go off the bar. And then he just, like you said, just flung himself at it and completely missed it. And a regular or striker that's in form and a striker that's confident, is able to make clean contact with that. He taps it home, and then we're all praising him for, his level of poaching and, to being able to see it ahead of time and all that sort of stuff. But we just haven't been able to praise Richie for those things yet. Paul Markey says 3 years ago, I told you guys about Julian Alvarez before anybody. Paul, I'm glad that you did, but I'm probably sure that we ignored you because I think Dave was not the biggest fan of Julian Alvarez when we were first linked with him. I think he infamously called him the next Eric Lamela or something like that. So I think we probably ignored you on many occasions, Paul, and you probably were getting pretty frustrated with us, but big up to you, my man. And I hope Alejo Valise is going to be at least half of what Julian Alvarez has been, because talk about a real guy that's just come out of nowhere and has just basically taken the whole world. He's won the World Cup. He's winning. He's playing as a great partner to Erling Haaland. He's just honestly been a real star out of that league. And then Sean Harrell says the striker needs to fit Ange ball. End of. Data will bring the answer. It's not the pounds, it's the fit guys. So that is obviously the most important. Maybe the biggest fit might actually be a 30 million pound striker and not an 80 million pound striker. And that's something we also have to
just go and get Kyogo. Like, what are we doing here?
But this is what we have to trust. And I guess we were having this conversation earlier, is that we have to trust whoever maybe Spurs end up producing as the ideal candidate for it. And it could be a cheaper guy than we might expect. You never know.
Yeah, it probably will be. And look, Andrew's probably alluded to that in his press conference. But however, like I said, not everyone can score goals. And, at the rate that we need them, it's the hardest thing to do in football. You're talking about so many things you have to do in a split second: composure, first touch, looking at where you want to place it, holding off players most of the time, stuff like that. There's so much that goes into that split second. You bring in a young lad here off that data, which is going to be used outside of the top 5 leagues. It's going to take time for him to adjust. It just is. And I don't want anyone to come back and say, oh, Dave, you were right, because I know I'm right. But what I will say is you go to Italy, There's players, goal scorers in Italy you can go and get, which I guarantee you that data is not covering, because it'll cover players at a certain price range. It won't cover players like Dusan Vlahovic, Tammy Abraham, who will guarantee you goals.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Big up to you, Sean Hurl. Shout out to Paxton Road TV, and appreciate you sending in your thoughts and sending in the support. Also, as well, to Paul Markey, William Catucci, everybody. We're switching gears to our very last question here, and it is the one that you've probably been waiting for and maybe even confused about this whole time, and it is the Gary Neville quotes that have come out recently. He did have a lot to say about fullbacks, and I guess sort of Ange's style of fullbacks. Gary Neville was skeptical. And he said the reason that 95% of fullbacks play as fullbacks is because they can't receive the ball on the half turn in midfield. Honestly, I think Poro thinks that he's Rodri. If you're a United player and you're pressing, you want him to have that ball played into him all day long. It's nearly cost them goals in this first half alone. He said that Poro and Destiny Udogie do well when they get into the attacking part of the pitch, but in the defensive half, they have to get out of there because it's causing them problems. Start with you first, Brains. Do you agree with Gary Neville that it's a risk to be asking our players to play this infield Pep style of football? Do you agree with Gary Neville's opinion?
No, not at all. I think it's very clever. I think it's like, it gives you defensive solidity. It gives you 5 essentially at the back. No, did he make that statement? Was he saying that at halftime? Because like he clearly, surely.
Monday Night Football.
Really, because like the second half, like there was so many times where it kind of worked a charm. You know, it's like, focus on how bad your midfield is before you start criticizing players who are young and actually had a really good second half. Like, yeah, for me, I never, when you hear players who are like who Gary Neville's never ever been able to be subjective when Man United games are on, when it's a Man United game. He can't give a subjective opinion on Liverpool. He can't give a subjective opinion on any of the teams that he hates. And it's just, I don't know, man. It's like, it's classic. It's like when Sherwood last week was saying about Van de Ven. It's like, dude, shut up. Like, shut up. You do not. You're talking about 20-year-olds, 23-year-olds, 21-year-olds are coming in playing their first times. Are you not going to be stiff? Are you not going to be nervous? Like, these are players you can see. You have to be absolutely blind if you can't see that these players are oozing with talent and just need a little bit of, smoothing around the edges. Then we bought into that. We want that. We want to smooth them. We want to make them into like the classic for our system. But this is what to criticize a young player, it's like, it sounds just like a moany old man, to criticize a young player who's been moved from one position to another position, who's taken in a system. What he should have been focusing on was how clever Ange Postecoglou's tactical changes were in the second half. How he decided to move midfielders over and play a more expansive midfield game, and when we're allowed to double up on any player on down the side, just absolutely making their defenders and any of their midfielders had no way of stopping our domination of the ball in that second half, just because of the way he made a small little tactical changes on where midfielders were going to pick up, the wide midfielders were going to pick up the ball, so the 8 would go further out, and then we'd have double ups. It's just, and then obviously they would start to go out towards to contain a double up, and then bang, there was huge holes through the center of the park, and that happened 2 weeks in a row. So I think Gary Neville should be focusing on how dreadful his team is, how easy teams are able to pierce open, and how easy managers are able to come with slight little twists, and Ten Hag is out of the game. Like they've had Ten Hag for a while now. You know what I mean? And they're completely all over the place. Like, focus on that rather than like a great player who's got a lot of talent who just needs a little bit of like guidance.
He could also be a bit jealous of how much fullbacks are being asked to do nowadays, whereas before in his era, fullbacks were some of the worst players in the 11, and now all of a sudden they are some of the best players in the 11. So maybe he's just getting a little bit jealous. What do you?
He would love to have been in the middle of the field, like making beautiful little triangles, like Poro was with Basuma and Romero and stuff. So yeah, I think he is a little bit jealous, to be honest.
What do you think, Alan? Is the self-elected mayor of Manchester right about the inverted fullbacks?
He has a slight point, and I'll tell you for why. In regards to things we saw in that game, but obviously you've got to apply context to it. So at the beginning of the game, you saw Porro get caught in possession a couple of times, and it did lead to chances. He's correct in that assessment. But what he's failing to see is he's trying to say about Man City. He's trying to put Spurs on the Man City level. This is a new manager, a new system, giving these players a new role and what to do and all that. So it's going to take time. There's going to be mistakes, hiccups along the way. We're going to have to realise that as Spurs fans. But to go at them or to criticise them for literally Porro's first game with Ange in the Premier League, coming in that role, Udogie second game, and I don't recall Udogie making a big mistake or or getting caught in position. I don't recall it. Porro a couple of times in the first half, but once Ange adapted and changed the way we played, then I don't recall in the second half any players having problems. I remember late on in the game, Højbjerg with a silly ball into the middle, which they almost capitalised on, but I don't recall much else. So I think he's like, I can't remember who said it, whether it was Brains, Dave, or both of you. I think he was like a little bitter in the fact that Man United got owned in that midfield in the second half. They got overrun, outworked and all that. And maybe it's because you had inverted fullbacks that were doing it to him as well. Because I remember Destiny picking up the ball and running through their midfield and literally lay it off to the wing. So, and it happened time and time again. So for me, I just think in regards to Gary Neville, I think, bitter. I agree that literally it can work. But like I said, you've got Ange, a new manager, a new system. It's going to take time. And also the question, do Spurs have the players to play the
Pep Guardiola style?
Well, let's look at it. Last season, most of the pundits said that these players were awful and couldn't play attacking football. Look what Ange has done with them in such a short time. I think people just get blinded by what they see and don't think logically. These players have completely transformed in such a short period of time. And like I said, we will have heavy defeats coming up. I really do predict we'll go toe-to-toe with City and get spanked. But it's a learning process. But to go at a fullback who obviously he's had a wing back, Porro's had a bit of a bad start at Spurs because like people criticise and he can't defend. To come and do that inverted role where he's having to do on the right and also going into midfield doing double duty to get better as the game went on against a big game. And it was him who was entrusted in the big game against United. Royale, I think he's been overly critical, and I think it does come from a place of bitterness, in my honest opinion, because Man United look bad at this moment in time.
I mean, look, I find it ironic that you've got Gary Neville questioning the technical abilities of a player, considering he used to give the ball to David Beckham to do all the work and cross it in and everything else. So I find it very ironic that he's questioning Pedro Porro's, technical abilities. However, these guys, Gary Neville operates off the old saying. I remember United were 3-0 down at White Hart Lane, and it's a famous story. Ferguson walked in at halftime and says, "It's Tottenham lads." They went out and spanked us 5-3. He operates off that. He still thinks we're the same Tottenham that he used to rock up and bully. So he operates off that. He still has that sort of mindset towards our club. But are we surprised? We know the media hates our club. We know that, pundits hate our club. We're the most underrepresented club inside the top 6 in punditry across all sort of media, right? So you're never, ever going to get any Spurs narratives to be able to counter it, ever. Because there's very few Spurs players doing the punditry or ex-Spurs players doing the punditry. But, these are the same guys that chased Sam Allardyce and people like that out of the game, right? Saying it's outdated, you can't play that way anymore, this, that, and the other. But now they're going to chastise Ange Postecoglou for trying to play out from the back. Well, make your mind up. What do you want? You're going to criticise managers for playing long ball and coming up with a counter way of playing against teams, which was a great equaliser, because rather than have to play through them, they just played over them and pushed people up to get onto second balls and stuff like that. So they ridiculed that, criticised it. They said England and its league is better off for the Pep Guardiola style of play, all the stuff that he sort of brought to the Premier League. But now they're going to criticise Tottenham for playing that way. It's absolutely mind-boggling. For me, just don't take any notice of what the press says. Jamie Carragher last year said, sack Conte, this, that, and the other. And I was like, okay, I'll go back and see what you said when we signed him. You said it was going to take him longer than 18 months to score the mess out of Tottenham, but here you are saying sack him. All Spurs fans then follow up with what he has to say. Yeah, he's right, sack him. But okay, but if there were Spurs representatives out there in the media, would there have been someone to counteract what he had to say, or someone that would have pulled him up and said, well, hang on, I think you're missing a few issues here. I think you're missing the fact that they didn't do, you know what I mean? There's never any of that. So for me, I'd take away a pinch of salt. I think it's pure out of bitterness. He looks at Porro. He's got a better hairline. He's got a better tan. He looks better, and he's more technically
He's very
gifted.
photogenic.
He's just better. He's better.
He's far more photogenic than Gary is. This is true. He's just jealous. He's jealous of him in every way. Exactly right, Dave.
One of the funniest things I heard was that I think it was on, that show he does with all the fans, and they all the overlap, yeah. And it came to which fan was it? I don't know if it was it Villa, or it was one of the teams he came to near the end. It was just like getting all the other teams in, and so he starts talking, and then halfway through talking, he's like, I mean, well, he turns around and says, well, I actually haven't really watched much of you this season. But he's just given this whole opinion, and then he turns around and says, well, I haven't watched much of your team this season. Then he continues giving his opinion. It's like, you're just saying you don't know what you're talking about. Don't talk then. Watch more of a, get a bigger amount of stuff to watch before you cast an opinion on things. He's just, he's a bit of an idiot.
I do think, though, with saying that Spurs don't have the players to play this sort of system, or, it's too audacious for Ange to be playing this type of system in the Premier League. I feel like if he's able to get it to work with like mid-table Japanese teams and like, lower level, A-League teams, and he's able to get them to string passes around and get them to understand inverted fullbacks and all that sort of thing, it doesn't seem that far-fetched that he can get Emerson then to understand it, or like somebody like that.
This isn't Pep's system. This is Ange. This is Ange's system. Like this, he obviously, a great manager is going to take little bits. You can see he's taking bits from all his favorite managers. He spoke about it. There's Ferguson ideologies of pressing. There's the Geiger press ideas in there. You can see there's so many different things. Dominating the ball was not just a Pep thing. Like who taught Pep how to do it? Like, let's go back. It's total football as well. All the Cruyff's influence on the game, and there's older managers there that are influenced his style of what he's learned. But what they should be talking about is, how do we feel? We're the only people who matter here. Like the fans, and this is what Ange is trying to do. He's like, I'm going to go into a club and I'm going to play football that I know their team their fans want to watch, and I want to watch. And it doesn't. Everything else doesn't matter. We understand that we'll lose some games. We understand it's going to be a bit of a journey, but we're watching good football, and and we love it. It's 2 games in. It's early. We saw what we did to Barcelona in the first half. Basuma made Frankie de Jong look like he was an under 14. So we're seeing incredible football when we're loving it. Like. This makes us feel great. This energizes an entire fan base. So for me, it's incredible to see this man's come in here and he's gone, I'm gonna stick to my guns. I'm gonna play the stuff I want to see.
But Brains, the media know that. That's why they're coming out now with all this horse crap to try and destabilize Spurs. Them analysis, if he said that last year when we were trying to play out the back with Dyer, Reece and Davies, I would have said, you know what, you're absolutely spot on. I would have gave him a round of applause. I would have hugged him and kissed him and said, thank you for, exposing that on the national stage. But they didn't. They questioned Antonio Conte's managing methods, this, that, and the other, right? Get him out of Spurs. But now we're playing out from the back. Now we're playing the right way. Now they want to say we don't have the players to do it. They're a year too late. A year too late with this analysis. Honestly, when I seen the quotes, I was like, geez, what's this?
Yeah,
January
what do they want?
2022. Yeah,
what else can we do? What else can we do? We've just gone from the complete opposite, manager to now this manager. It's just, what else can they want from us? Paul Markey, he does seem to be a very bitter man, and I think we've absolutely reflected that there. And I think it does seem to come from a bit of jealousy of just, Pedro Porro and the likes of others just stringing rounds, stringing passes around their midfield. I guess he just got a little bit butthurt about it. David Shire says, I cracked myself up when Liverpool beat Man United 6-0. And I guess maybe this is the mindset we have to put ourselves in as, a Man United pundit, post defeat, and they have to put themselves in that, sort of mindset of this is Man United and those sort of kind of catchphrases and whatnot. So I guess this is what we have to realize, it's just coming from a very upset, very angry, and, probably a bit deluded Man United fan that is just, thinking of something, to say to, get onto the airwaves, I guess, because that's what it is. They just go into this sort of delirium whenever they lose, and they just have to find a way to come up with, some sort of catchphrase. And I guess the catchphrase was to shoot down Pedro Porro.
David's given them a bit too much praise to Man United because it was 7-0, wasn't it? They were even worse.
Well, we're forgetting more than they did, clearly. So let's hope they don't forget it. Big up to you, David, my friend. I think we're reaching sort of the end of the show here, everybody. So we were going to take just some quick questions from some members, while we're going to plug the channels here and everything. Everybody, if you haven't already, we haven't asked, but please smash that like button if you have enjoyed the show thus far. And then we're going to take some members from people, some questions from members in the chat for the last couple of minutes here, and then we'll kind of wrap up some. So Dave, maybe starting some questions, and we're going to get in some of the channel links and everything as well.
Yeah, so I'll start. So Brains will throw one at you, my man. This is from Charlie Maddox 4104. What position do we need to? What position we need a signing in before the window closes, and where might we be able to give academy players a chance?
That's a really good question, actually. If you're thinking about like, okay, which academy players we could bring through, then I would think that if you got Phillips and you get, I mean, obviously I want to bring in another really good centre back. Just for solidity, but also I'm torn because I really do want a striker coming in. But if you're going to put Sonny in the center, all right, then if it's only one, then maybe I would take just another center back. But then if you're talking about that, you might bring some of the academy through. We've got a couple of really good center backs at the academy level. We've got Phillips there as well. So I would like to see some of the academy. And if it is in a case of like we're investing in some of these players for the next season and then maybe it's a case of bringing some of the academy. There's a lot of good players in there. I don't know is Max Robson still there? We've got like the kid who scored 2 goals in the under-21s. What's his name?
Santiago.
You got Sunsut Bell who can maybe come in and do. You got Darrington at the back. You got players who could be really good. Obviously you got Alfie as well. So there is players, and I think we will start to see some of these players like on the bench here and there. And I think, like they will start to adapt the 23s, 21s. I think they will start to adapt Ange Ball as well because they'll need to come in and take to Ange's system. But obviously, I would love to either get Kyogo or Orban in as a centre forward. Not even if you're going to get Orban, it doesn't have to be to play him straight away. He's going to have to adapt. But if you're going to keep Sonny there in the center, then I'd love to get that Schurz, the Dutch center back in, because I think he's an absolute beast. And I think if Romero isn't there, you got 2 Dutch center backs, like we had 2 Belgian center backs. Just that kind of 2 players who speak each other's language, they love each other, they know each other. And I think the future of the Dutch team is him and Van de Ven at the back. I think they're going to move that way naturally. So I would love to, get a run on everyone else and get him in, so that we just have a super, super strong centre back pairing. I would go that way. Obviously, if you need to get Tosin in for the good thing about also Orban is that you can bring him in. It's not affecting the squad as well. So I would say either Orban or Schurz would be who I'd love to get in right now. I know Tony won't come to us apparently because he's definitely a red one way. Either he's a Liverpool fan or he wants to go to Arsenal. I would say you need a centre back. I think midfield, we're all right. I think we can actually sell either one of Højbjerg and Lo Celso, and you've still got Bissouma, Madison. Hearing that Bentancur might be back. It might be back and available to play in September, but you're probably only looking at October, November before he's really cooking. But look at our midfield, man. Madison, Bissouma, Bentancur, Sarr is looking world class, and then our 4th or 5th change is Højbjerg if we keep him. I'm guessing sell the Celso, but so I think we're strong in the middle of the park. I think we do have options up front, especially if Gill's going to come back. If you do have options for the wings. I think we're only interested in Brennan Johnson, by the way, as a right winger. I don't think we're interested in his through the center as a striker. So I think that's what I would go for. I'd go for a big centre back, which is Schurz, and a striker. Number one, I would take Kyogo over anyone in the world, because I think Ange just goes, all those goals, you know exactly how you played.
Yeah.
Just do that, and I'll build it. I'll tell everyone
again.
how to play for you. Just do that again. That's what
I agree. I agree with that. I was saying that before as well, Brains. If you're going to be spending 30-40 million, why not get in? So for a Hashiu who already knows the system, absolutely spot on. But big up Shawnee Maddox. Hopefully you would enjoy Brain's answer there. I agree with him. Maybe about Dorrington or Phillips if we need cover at centre back for sure. And we'll go with Paul Gregory's next, and we'll throw this one at you, Alan. Who takes the third midfield spot when Bentancur is fit, and what type of midfielder do we need if we end up bringing in one?
So I don't think midfield. Look, I don't think midfield's a problem. I agree with Brains. I think we need other areas to be looked at. Bentancur comes back. And obviously there's no, if you see my channel, he is one of my favorite players because the energy, everything he puts in, the way he was controlling games before he got injured, everything went through him. There's no basically that he got injured and it seemed like we fell apart. So for me, he's a mainstay in the team. But obviously with the ACL injury he suffered, he may not be the same player. If he comes back and is the same player, for me, I would have him, Bissouma, Maddison. Sarr, I think you can develop over time. He's shown what he can do. That would be my midfield three. But it's good to have, like I said, with so long with Spurs, is the fact that normally when somebody goes out injured, the drop off is horrendous. Yeah. Now it looks like with that midfield. Now I'm not Lo Celso's biggest fan, but if Maddison gets injured, it looks like Lo Celso will come in and do a job, because it looks like you got a manager playing the right way, and he looks like he now believes that he deserves to be at Tottenham and should be at Tottenham. Same with that. If Bentancur goes down or Bissouma, Sarr, ready-made replacement. Skipper would sell. That might be a debate for another time. Skipper would sell. He'd be the one that goes for me. But I say, midfield is absolutely fine. They would be my midfield three: Bissouma, Bentancur, Maddison. But if Sarr continues to improve, and when Bentancur comes back, he isn't the same player and Sarr's playing better, then I'll stick with Sarr. I don't have allegiances to players, although I like them. My main thing is who works best for Tottenham in gaming situation.
I think you make an absolute great point there about, before when we've missed midfielders, there's been a huge drop off in quality. And I think this time round, there won't be. I think you make an absolute solid point there, Alan. Paul Gregory, I couldn't have got a better answer for you than that, my man. So big yourself up. Jacko, one to chart you. Looks like Madders will miss the Bournemouth game. Will Gio get his chance to play? And that is from Valisman or Valisman, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I made an image for this one, Val Eisman, top man. And yes, will Gio be able to fill in for Maddison? I think he will. I guess the question I have on my mind is, can he do it effectively, and can he do it as well as Maddison does? I feel like Gio Lo Celso is actually a different player to Maddison. I don't see him as much of a goal-scoring midfielder as James Maddison is. And so is he going to have that threat going forward that he does? Probably not. But in preseason, he's popped up with some goals, and it's been kind of, just sort of poacher type goals where it's just kind of fallen in front of him. But at the same time, he still finished it, and he's finished more goals in preseason than more of our forwards even did. So I do feel like Gio Lo Celso is in some type of redemption arc right now. And we did hear that he also has had a child recently, and he's kind of just had a different perspective, and has come across at least a bit better to the staff around the training ground, and has come across better to his teammates. I guess he's just changed his whole attitude, according to some sources. And I can always accept, giving a guy a second chance or a third chance or a fourth chance in his case. If that's, if that's the scenario where he has changed a lot and he has, become a different type of character. And because that was what the problem was before, was that he was seen as a bit of a distraction, and he was seen as a guy that I guess, distracted from the overall kind of ethos of the squad and what they're trying to achieve. And I guess it's the complete opposite now. And he's seen as a bit of a leader, and he's seen as somebody that people really depend on. So I think he's going to do just fine filling in for Maddison. Maybe might even pop up with an assist that, could be more that through ball that we were seeing, into Richarlison, because that's what he was doing. He was just playing through ball after through ball after through ball. And hopefully we get to see some of that. but I'm interested to see whether he's going to be similar to Maddison or maybe slightly different. I'm going to go maybe more that he's going to be a bit more different to Maddison because he's not as much of a goal scoring midfielder. But I think he'll do fine. I don't know if I'll fill out an apology form just yet, though. I think he'll have to probably at least put in 4 good displays before I start printing out the apology form.
Cheers. You're a very forgiving man, Jack. Or 4 for me, it's going to take about 4 months, lad. But fair play. But look, I agree with you, Jack. I think if Matters is injured, and look, they say it's going to take 3 to 10 days to come back. Is there a point of risking him against Bournemouth? I'm not so sure. I'll probably go with Celso. But big up Venice, man. And then the last question, we've got Celso 120. I'll take this one. It says players not wanting to leave Ndombele, Dyer, and Sanchez, although he doesn't blame Sanchez for not wanting to go to Russia. Look, on that one, I don't blame him. But look, this is the problem. That's why you've seen the football you've seen over the last few years. That's why you've seen such high turnover in managers, because when a lot of these guys have been the ones to be next out the door, oh, shock, all of a sudden performances fall off a cliff. And for me, it just sums up that culture, and I can't wait it to go. I can't not wait for it to go, where you've got people looking after their pockets rather than caring about the football. But then some of them people pretend they care about the fans, pretend they love about the fans. Well, if you do, take me into consideration and F off. That'd be absolutely brilliant. So thank you for that. But it just sums up the culture of a lot of these guys. I said it before, especially with a lot of these guys coming to the end of last season, some of these older guys like Sanchez, Dyer, Ndombele, people that's been around for quite some time, they're hanging on to their pay packet. They don't care about the football on the pitch. Oh, shock, since they've been gone out of the team and, we brought in new guys, all of a sudden we're seeing a much better brand of football. So I'd say learning curve. Let's stop making all the excuses we made for Dyer for not performing, Winks, Sanchez, people like that. Just call a spade, and then you get improvements. It's that simple. But big up, Celso, my man. Really appreciate the question. And members, thank you very much. And hopefully you enjoy that your questions do get brought up and do get answered. But look, we'll end it off here. We'll start asking the guys to plug their channels where we can find them. Alan, first time on the channel, my man. So let's go to you. What's going on over at Time Added On, my man?
So because I'm a Spurs fan, predominantly most of it is Spurs, but as the season goes on, it will be like debate shows between rival fans. It will be obviously previews, like having rival fans on. Dave will be joining me tomorrow, sorting out a time with other guests. We'll be talking anything Spurs that come up. We never know. It might be a signing or two, or might be linked with somebody, or fond of, or cherish, like the mainstream media that use these words today. I've got a big show planned for deadline day. Going to go from like 6 in the evening all the way through to the end. Be having rival fans on talking about their show, like their team signings. We'll do ranking shows for teams, obviously what they're doing, like where they rate on their transfer window, signing ratings as well. So we're going to do all of that. Loads of different content coming out. Thank you very much for having me on. I've obviously liked your content for a while, wanted to come on, so it's glad that we can make this happen. But that's the channel, that's the link. Make sure you subscribe. And more often than not, it's Tottenham, and it can be quite chilled on there, but sometimes it can be a bit out of hand, which we all like in this person.
It always is.
Look, I think everywhere it gets like that at times, but honestly, Alan and the guys over at Tom Added on the contributors, they put out some great shows, some great discussions. So please do get over there and check that out. And these guys have been generous enough to give up their time for us this evening. So hopefully you can get over there and just smash the subscribe button. It takes 1 minute compared to the 2 hours that these guys are giving up. So I'd appreciate that. And Alan, hopefully it's not the last time, my man. Really enjoyed having you on and really enjoyed the conversation. So hopefully it's not the last time, buddy. Thank you very much, my man.
Always here.
Brilliant. And like we said, you can find me over there tomorrow. If you want to see an Alan and Dave tag team, get over there tomorrow and check it out as well. Brains, my man. I mean, look, who knows what's going on in your world? You do music, you're running a football YouTube page now. So what's going on with you, my man?
I'm just seeing out the summer, playing a lot of sports. I play cricket as well, which people don't really know why a rapper and someone from Scotland would play cricket.
Sport in the world.
But obviously I was born in South Africa, so I have that in me as well. But so apart from making films and music and all the other creative stuff, I'm kind of I've obviously played football at youth level and got signed to Motherwell, and so I kind of moved away from my football career and came back to it all these years later. And now, we're just kind of filming all of our games. I play in a league that's a pros and prospects league. So we've actually got an ex-Spurs player, Will Miller. I don't know if you guys remember Willie Miller. He played in that game against Juventus. Wasn't the one where Kane scored from the halfway line. It was a season earlier, but yeah, he was playing for Spurs not too long ago. He's in our league. We play him in a couple weeks. He's got one of the best teams in the league. They've got like Crystal Palace academy players who have fallen out of the academy.
Wow!
So it's a really good league. Every team has like a pro. I'm a former pro for our team, and then we have some academy players, and it's a really good positive thing for young players to do, for either players who are leaving. There's some Burnley player who's in the league now. He's just left Burnley. It's good for your mental health. Like once you leave the game, you no longer play at a big level. It can be really bad for you. It can cause depression. So it's a league that really helps players who are coming out of the academy system, and also players who are leaving the game and need something to do with their lives now. So it's really high quality at times. Our team we're a very attacking team, catching teams on the break, and now we're adapting a new system, maybe inspired a little bit by Ange. We're passing the ball a lot more, get a lot of touch on the ball, dominate the ball, and see if we can kill teams. But we put a video up every Friday. We play every Thursday, and pretty soon we're going to start streaming the games live. So just see what we can do with it, see how far we can go. That's just another life that I live that you can kind of tune into.
Is this 5-a-side? Is it 7-a-side?
It's sevens on a 9-a-side pitch. So you can. So it is very adaptable. It's like you can do long balls, and it's it gets. You would think some of these players that they've played at a good level and they would not be as competitive anymore, but it gets real competitive. Will Miller actually in the game before us, he was playing in a game and the team were beating him 3-2, and he got the ball at the halfway line and he hit from the halfway line and scored an absolute screamer from the halfway line to equal the game 3-3. So it's a fantastic little league, and I'm really kind of privileged to be a part of it. Yeah, so it's all good.
I'm looking forward to that.
I'm going to be all over that content later on. I'm going to be analyzing your game brains, and I'll give you a text about 2 a.m. in the morning, But honestly, people do get over there, check it out. There's content already up on there. There's a couple of half-an-hour clips of the games and stuff like that. Look, I'm sure loads of us spend our spare time looking at non-league club. There's a lot of documentaries all over YouTube, and this is exactly, I think, what Brains is trying to do with this. So let's get over, give him the boost. Let's smash that subscribe button again. This is 2 Tuesdays on the trot. He's giving up his time. So please get over there and smash that subscribe button. And just it'll only take 1 second. But big up, guys. I really appreciate your time this evening, man. It really means a lot. So thank you very much. And then we've got this from Neil Shaft, and he says, David, you Irish Tom Jones, having the ladies fainting and throwing their knickers at you. We hate you, Gary and Phil. Trust me, that's not the case. That's not the case. Only on Sunday mornings. But look, we won't go into that, my man. But big yourself up. Look, some people would argue I sound like Tom Jones when I rock the mic. But I'll let you guys be the ones that decide. I don't want my ego inflated anymore. I know when I see my girlfriend throws her knickers at me for sure. But look, we'll leave it at that. Big up, Neil Shaft, my man. I appreciate it. But Jacko, do you want to sign us out?
I would just say to Neil, maybe Dave could grow out the hair a little bit more, and then we could really see, if he can actually pull that off, the Irish Tom Jones. But big up to you, Neil, and hopefully you're keeping well in California as well, and hopefully your friends and family, everybody are safe, and because I know things have gotten, at least the last day or two have been a bit crazy over there. So big up to you, Neil.
Well, what's going on?
They had a pretty bad earthquake, I think, and everything, or California, pretty bad earthquake. Big up to you, Neil, though. Hopefully you're keeping safe and everything. Looks like you are. You're watching the stream with us, so it looks like everything's going all right. But top man, Neil. Good to hope.
He's probably in one of his 10 holiday homes, Jack. He's probably in Cape Cod or Cape Verde or somewhere like that. But big up, Neil, my man. And big up Paul Hotspur as well. Big up. I presume Paul will be streaming soon enough as well. So make sure you get over there and check out Paul's stream. But guys, thank you very much. Really appreciate the guys' time this evening. Really appreciate all you guys at home, the ones that tune in, engage with us in the comments. It doesn't go unnoticed. And as you know, we like to engage with you where we can. But also a massive thank you to everybody who, help support this channel and help us take it to new heights. As you can see, all the support you've given us to date. We just keep getting better, and improving. So a massive thank you to all you guys. Neil Thomas, Paul Markey, really appreciate it. C. Sherman, Shawnee Earl, David Shire, and Neil Shafton. So big yourself up, guys. Really do appreciate the support. And look, your boys will be back tomorrow at some point with a podcast, probably tomorrow evening, because I'm going hiking. So wish me the best of luck. That's if I get back. I might be about 4 stone lighter when I get back, Jack. They might not recognize me. But look, thank you very much, guys. Come on, you Spurs. In hands we trust. We never stop. Time added on. And then Brains' YouTube team is called what is
Deadly
it again?
Venoms.
Deadly Venoms. So Deadly Venoms FC you need to subscribe to, and time added on. Come on, you Spurs. We never stop.
We never stop. See you, everybody.